Magnificence is more than skin profound within the 824 horsepower V12 powered super roadster. A few cars are fair dazzling. Aston Martin built a brand around class and encouraged it with V12 control. And whereas the world is focused on electric vehicles, the British brand bucks the drift with the dispatch of the 2025 Aston Martin Conquer, a two-seat fantastic tourer with an unused twin-turbo V12 beneath the long and dazzling hood. And we may not hold up to drive it. So off to the hilly and coastal streets of Sardinia, Italy, we went for a day of driving like eminence in a vehicle with a resonant soundtrack that's getting to be expanding uncommon within the car world. A few backstory, usually the third era of the Conquer. The brand's lead that was to begin was presented in 2001 and was highlighted within the 2002 James Bond motion picture Kick the Bucket Another Day. The final of the moment era Vanquishes rolled off the line in 2018. In 2017, Aston appeared a Conquer concept as a mid-engine car, but administration at the time did not need and might not manage a mid-engine underneath the Valhalla, so the thought got the kibosh. Plans for an electric car were too changed. The third-generation Conquer could be a front-engine, rear-wheel drive cruiser with an aluminum structure, moo roofline, and signature side strake. Originators made this excellence longer, more extensive, and with a bigger grille to grant it more nearness. It includes a longer wheelbase and front overhang, but shorter nose and chopped-off rays with 4 depletes. The carbon fiber shield on the back can be body color or differentiate. The automaker did not need to take after the past practice of working off the DB11/DB12, putting the two-seater on beat of the 2+2 in the lineup, and it was never reaching to be a DBS. The unused lead was to take off on its possess, riding on a devoted stage. Insane choice to create a modern V12. The uncommon sauce is the 5.2-liter twin-turbo V12 that grunts out 824 drive with 738 lb-ft of torque, conveyed by means of a ZF 8-speed program transmission, accomplishing a beat speed of 214 miles per hour. The group knew they required an enormous jump in control to surpass today's effective V8s, but it had to meet the most recent outflows directions all-inclusive. Aston Martin made the strong venture choice to retry the V12, persuaded there's a resurgent request for a V12 that will proceed to the conclusion of the decade. Yes, it is the same 5.2-liter relocation, but it was totally revamped to meet the control and outflows objectives, says Simon Newton, executive, vehicle execution. The disgust stream to the turbos turns 15% quicker, and when the spark comes within, the fire is cleaner for both control and outflows. There's more wind current through the front grille than the DBS. Ian Whalen, head of mechanical advancement testing, says the motor within the DBS was a beginning point, but it took 5 a long time and a parcel of exertion to form a bespoke adaptation with higher vitality for the Conquer. All the major components and most of the inside workings are in use with critical plan changes to the barrel heads and modern admissions and debilitate ports. They looked at coordinate infusion, but chosen they might meet their targets with harbor infusion. The power and torque bends have a more noteworthy sense of crescendo, with a 10% higher torque crest than within the DBS. And whereas the DBS may well be challenging in damp conditions, engineers needed the Conquer to give a sure and comfortable ride for all drivers in all conditions. We experienced damp streets, and whereas there was will jump on difficult speeding up, after the initial response to torque is conveyed carefully through the primary 6 a long time in GT mode. Toss it into Sport or Don Plus, and the car conveys full torque all the time. Soundtrack of the divine beings. Is there anything very just like the sound of a V12? You cannot offer assistance but grin, particularly hearing the scrumptious burps and burbles. No cackling on the downshifts. The astonishing soundtrack is uproarious sufficient to be delighted in, but not so uproarious merely would tire of it on a long drive. Discretionary titanium debilitate transmits a shriller screech at 6,000 RPM. The standard sound has more bass. We had the titanium debilitate, and it made us hesitant to turn on the Bowers and Wilkins sound framework, leaning toward the debilitate notes. The Conquer may be a chain mammoth powerfully. Aston needed a direct association to the front wheels to form the huge car more dexterous through the chassis and an electronic raised restricted slip differential designed to oversee wheel slip and give more prominent nimbleness in cornering. It is most apparent within the soundness and composure the car displayed through quick clearing bends. Controlling is fabulous with awesome on-center feel. The scarcest input is exchanged instantly to the wheels, a welcome respite from so many cars nowadays that feel numb. Culminate for a day of boundless bends. Yes, it could be an exceptionally expansive car, discernible on some of the contract streets through small towns on the island of Sardinia, but it felt very agile on the twisties. The chassis may be a part stiffer than the ancient DBS, and most of the mass is between the axles to provide it a shorter car feel. The objective was a super GT with low-speed agility and high-speed steadiness. GT mode gives comfortable throughway cruising. Dawn and Sports furthermore bring on full control quicker, and everything gets to be more forceful. Speeding up, moving, motor sounds. There's not a parcel of downforce car because it was not implied to be a track car, but there's a track mode, and you'll be able to turn ESP off totally. The dynamic exhaust only makes a distinction in GT mode, but that's where the Conquer needs to live most of the time, with Dawn and Sports additionally for once you truly need to induce on it. Key to comfortable cruising. Equipped shifts are smooth with a transmission perfectly calibrated. In case you need manual moving, the paddles are metal and overwhelming to lock in. A light tap does not do it, but it responds rapidly to a deliberate push or pull. The Conquer has Bilstein stuns for damping, with less base damping for low-speed, comfortable cruising. We are able to confirm to the truth that it would be comfortable day-by-day driver, with a suspension that coasts over asphalt blemishes. You listen to the street underneath you, but scarcely feel it. The Pirelli P0 bespoke tires, with extra damping and commotion cancellation, demonstrated decently grippy with damp streets for much of the drive. Difficult increasing speed brought about in a few-wheel jump, but damp mode made a difference sell the car on winding roads in misty and foggy conditions. The carbon ceramic brakes take many minutes to warm up and require a bit of exertion to thrust the pedal profound, but the result is certain and fulfilling halting power with no cruel nibble or getting. Their small plunge and in crisis halt. The pre-production cars we drove did not have voyage control or lane keep help empowered, so we seem not assess these highlights. More style interior. Appreciation for a sill that does not obstruct the capacity to urge in and out effortlessly. Interior of the cabin was updated to be more open, with a lower center support and a humble and discreet 10.3-inch touchscreen, as well as difficult buttons for numerous capacities. There's moreover a 10.3-inch driver show. Our assessment vehicle had a dull gray and dark insides with softened cowhide columns and headliner, parts of carbon fiber on the entryway and sprint, with dark casket and metal trim, and a classy button with the brand symbol for start/stop and to dial up the diverse drive modes. The gear shift is additionally within the center support and slides forward like in plain throttle. There are flip switches for climate control and more buttons for solidness control, the debilitate boost, auto hold, stopping help, and the warmed seats. One prominently lost button, volume control. You'll be able to utilize the controlling wheel flip or the touchscreen. The sewn, punctured calfskin Dawn seats are comfortable and simple to alter to a great seating position through the controls to the proper of your knee on the side of the center comfort. Behind the Situate is fair sufficient room for a purse and briefcase. The Conquer is the fourth demonstrate to induce the infotainment framework that Aston Martin made in-house from scratch. It is compatible with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. There are AE USB ports and a phone charger within the secured center support. At the side is space for the key coxcomb and a control outlet. Restricted generation and sold out. To create it more select, Aston is capping generation at 1,000 Vanquishes a year universally, of which almost a third will go to North America, and a third is reserved for Europe, counting 15% for the joined together kingdom. That's half the generation of the DBS. The Conquer will have a life cycle of at slightest 5 a long time. Post-2030, the company should see what the administrative climate is. We will construct the V12 as long as we can, says Aston Martin executive of product and advertised technique Alex Long. Generation has started, with the primary conveyances anticipated by the conclusion of the year. Beginning cost is $434,000, and it comes lovely much stacked. There are no extra trim levels, and the few choices incorporate titanium debilitate, a carbon fiber execution situate, and a carbon roof rather than glass. The Conquer is sold out profound into 2025, and almost 65% of the pre-orders are utilizing bespoke customization through Q by Aston Martin. There are no plans for a Conquer S as in past eras, Long says. Aston came out with segment-topping control and full-blooded specs from day one, so there's no require for a variation with greater execution. There's no Inforum at any stiffer, which would include a cruelty that the company does not want for this cruiser. But anticipate a convertible in a long time. The Conquer was planned with capability and a hardened chassis to serve as a strong base for a Volante. With the DB12, there was a 40% take rate for the convertible in North America, Long says. The Aston Martin Conquer does what it was planned to do. See wonderful and Poland consideration. People gawked and admired. We got catcalls, and one man nearly fell out of his van stretching out to urge a stronger seat as we drove by. The objective was a comfortable and spry cruiser with the control to stick your ears to the back of your Situate in case you weapon it. All delighted in from interior extravagant and loose insides. Check, check, check.